Good afternoon, guys. Today, this afternoon, I'm just going to give you a quick insight into how in secondary we can set up our grade books and how we would go about getting the assessment scale information and the right grades into the grade book, so that then when we use our assessment when we record our assessment, we are able to effectively do that using the gradebook on Managebac. So each subject teacher, as we know, you guys have your separate classes for your separate subjects. I'm going to use the example of an IGCSE Year 11 class to walk you through how you would go about setting up your gradebook and how you would attribute the correct grade scales to the gradebook and so on. So I'm going to take this Year 11 class, as I mentioned, as an example. I'm in the overview here, but if I was in the tasks and units area, or the gradebook area, sorry, if I come to the gradebook area, I'm then able to adapt and edit the gradebook as necessary. So the first thing like we said, we're trying to keep things super simple. So our gradebook has to mirror our assessment scales. And as you can see, this is the assessment scale for IGCSE Geography for Year 10 and Year 11. And your heads of department are in the process of just updating these reflective of the 2019 scores and working out the averages for the IB and the IGCSE levels. Middle school teachers, yours is already done. The Year 9 scale is already done because we only have a singular scale for Year 9 across all subjects. And then we have obviously our subject specific scales. And this is the kind of, this is where we need to make sure obviously we are using the correct scale for each subject. Middle school teachers, you guys will just make sure you're using the correct information from your middle school assessment scale. And IGCSE teachers for Year 9, you just make sure that you use the generic Year 9 IGCSE scale as well. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to take this information that we have on our assessment scale, and we have to make sure that that information is being mirrored in Managebac so that the gradebook is attributing the correct weightings for the types of assessment that we set, but it's also scoring and attributing a grade based on our assessment scales. Okay, so the way we do this, we go into this gradebook function here, and we have a range of options. Now we're in the correct time frame because we've just come in. And what I need to do is I need to edit these task categories and also what are called my scales as well. So I click on this little edit button here, and there is another way to get to this. You can have something as modified grading scales. You get a little tab that comes up. I think it comes up. Well, it's not actually where I thought it was, but not necessarily right this second. If I come across it, I'll show you. We click on this little edit button here, and then I have different task categories. Now, we're going to keep this really simple this year because this has more functionality than we're actually going to use, but we are just going to set up formative assessments and summative assessment. And then we aren't going to use these. Now, you can either, if you want, I mean, there's different ways of, removing these. Not all of these can be deleted. You can leave them, but we aren't actually going to use these actual titles. I like to have an important date, function, just so I like to add things into the calendar using an important date button, which I set as a task sometimes. But the other ones I'm not going to use. So what's important now is that the formative and summative assessment types, their weightings have to match the grade level that we're working at. So here's the grade level for IGCSE Geography, and this is the same across all IGCSE subjects. Formative assessment is worth 30%, and summative assessment, including the semester exam, is worth 70%. And this is of their semester grade. So I come back into Managebac, and the first thing I need to do is change the weighting to 30 here, and then I need to change the weighting to 70 here. So 30 for the formative and 70 for the summative. I then need to make sure these are set to 0 because we're not going to use these, even though these titles are still available. Unfortunately, I just can't delete them. So we're just going to keep those as 0. And then if I want to mirror these colors, on my gradebook graph, then I can. It's completely up to me, or you, sorry. And then you can save those changes. So that now means that this functionality of weighting is correct. We then have one last thing to do on Managebac. We have to go to the grade scales. So I click on this grade scales tab here, and we don't use letter grades anymore. So we need to amend this scale to look like our scale here. And this is obviously the IGC geography one. So I just need that to disappear a minute. I come back to Managebac. So I need my scales to be reflective of that. So I have my 7-star that we have at IGCSE level. I have my 7, my 6, my 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I delete these ones that I'm not using. Middle school, you guys obviously you don't have the 7 stars, so you would be 1 less than this. And IB, we don't have the 7-star either. And then I need to make sure my percentages match up with the assessment information. So I take my scores here. So I work down through those. Anything 68 and above, 60 and above, 53, 45. I keep going through until these are done. I actually have to add we don't have it on the scale, but anything under 17 is a U. Actually, I don't need to really add that there. So I'm going to save that. You can add an ungraded if it's necessary. For the matter of this, I'm actually going to add it just to be safe. So anything from 0, I can obviously put in the ungraded there, but we don't award really an ungraded at school. We would make them do it again and make sure that they get into this 17 or above. And we save those changes. Now this grade book is set up and ready to go. So that means now, because I've saved it, this will work. So if I was to create a task, if I add a task up here, and this is let's just call this a test task. I give it or add it to the unit, that obviously the task is set. This is going to be a scored piece of summative assessment. So it's out of a percentage. The details of the assessment added in here. I'm going to collect the work in via Managebac so I can mark it. I'm going to link my unit resources here. And I would obviously want to normally notify the students via email, but I don't want them to see this for now. So I'm just going to create this task and add the resources. I now have this task set up within this class. So if I was to go back to my task where I can see, here's my task. I click on the task, and as we can see, it exists, and the students would send in their work and I would give them a grade. I'd be able to give them the grade, and the information, that I put in, like, the percentage and then the grade that gets attributed to that in this task then would automatically filter into the grade book. And that information will then eventually filter in onto the report as well. So it removes a lot of the old data input stuff that we were having to do, taking things out of grade books, putting them onto reports and so on. This will all be automatic moving forward. But for that to all happen, we just have to make sure that we get this kind of, this grade book function set up. So what's key is we just follow those steps to get our grade book set up. And then, you will have your weightings correct, and you would have if I just get the weightings up, our weightings correct, and also our grading scales correct, so that when we are marking work and then when we are giving it a percentage score, the work has something to score against, and it scores effectively and gives it the correct grade and so on. Thanks for your time, everybody. Any questions, please fire it across and I'll do my best to try and help and answer as many of those. Thank you very much.